Good morning, graduates, friends, and honoured guests. My name is Donald McEwen, and I am the chaplain to the university, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this graduation ceremony at the University of St Andrews on this exciting day for you. Presiding at today's graduation ceremony is the Chancellor, Dame Anne Pringle. This ceremony is taking place in the Younger Hall, officially opened in 1929. The Younger Hall is the university's venue for graduations and most formal ceremonies. In a few moments, the academic procession will enter the hall. To welcome the academic procession, St Salvator's Chapel Choir will lead us in singing the Gaudiamus. Please do join in. The words can be found in your programme. Now, should the fire alarm sound, please remain seated. The alarm will be silenced and staff will immediately investigate the cause of the activation. Should an evacuation be necessary, the alarm will then sound continuously and you will be advised of the need to evacuate. Staff will direct you accordingly. Please follow staff direction and leave the hall by the most appropriate exit. In the unlikely event that any other form of disruption occurs that requires action, an announcement will be made from this stage to advise you on the actions you need to take. Staff will be on hand to assist you. Please follow their instructions. At the end of the graduation ceremony, all our new graduates will join the academic procession, leaving the Younger Hall and walking along North Street and entering St Salvator's Quadrangle through the archway. To supporters, please wait until all our new graduates have left the hall. Ushers will then show you to the nearest exits. Outside, you will be directed to the quad, where you will be able to join our new graduates. Please ensure your mobile phone is switched off, or at least is on silent. You're welcome to take pictures or video, but please stay seated to do so. And now, to capture this unique moment, our official photographer will take a picture of those graduating today before the ceremony begins.
Good morning. Are we ready for this? What do you think of my camera? Great, isn't it? There's no hiding place in the hall. I can see everybody. Okay, where's your smiles? Perfect. And again. Last one. Superb. Thank you. Congratulations. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the graduation ceremony. As you're able, please rise for the Gaudiamus. Oremus. Omnipotens et aeterni Deus, actiones nostras omnes aspirando praeveni, et adjuvando prosequere, ut cuncta nostra operatio, et praesertim hoc quod nunc agridimur opus, a te incipiat, et per te queptum finiatur, quotenus sanctum nomen tuum glorificemus, et misericordia tua vitam aeternam consequamur, per Iesum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen.
Please be seated. I call upon the principal of the university.
Good morning, everyone. It is my happy duty as Principal and Vice-Chancellor to welcome you all to this summer graduation ceremony at the University of St. Andrews. I am delighted that all of you can share in the joy of today's ceremony. Graduation is the highlight of our academic year. At these ceremonies, students are awarded their degrees and people of distinction are honoured. We orient our academic calendar around these celebrations, and they are a tradition that speaks to the heart of our institutional mission. It is also a pleasure to welcome you to the Younger Hall, a fitting setting for the celebration of our graduates' achievements. This well-loved venue has been the home of our graduation ceremonies since its initial opening in 1929. Today's graduands will cross the Younger Hall stage in a style that unites them with the students who, for almost a century, crossed it before them, and also, of course, with the students who crossed our stages in the 5 centuries before that. This year, however, marks a moment of significant transition for the University of St. Andrews. Many of you will know that our former Chancellor, the late Right Honourable Lord Campbell of Pittenweem, died in September of last year. His loss has been felt keenly across the university, where for nearly 20 years he served St. Andrews with a mixture of integrity and courtesy, leaving a lasting mark on our ceremonial life and on all who witnessed his steady and generous presence. We have since welcomed new stewardship. In February of this year, Dame Anne Pringle was elected to serve as our next Chancellor. A distinguished diplomat and former British ambassador to Russia, Dame Anne brings to the Chancellorship a wealth of experience, discernment, and public service of the highest order. Her ties to St. Andrews are both deep and enduring. As an alumna of this university, graduating with a Master of Arts with honours in French and German in 1977, and through her exemplary leadership as Senior Governor of the University Court from 2016 to 2020. It was therefore especially fitting that her installation as Chancellor should take place during Wednesday afternoon ceremony in this week of celebration, where we gather to honour achievement, continuity, and renewal. In welcoming Dame Anne, we mark not only the beginning of a new chapter in our ceremonial life, but also the continuation of a tradition sustained by those who serve this university with distinction and care. The broader graduation tradition which we observe today has indeed taken place in St. Andrews since the 2nd decade of the 15th century, when the university was founded, and some of the rituals that were established in the 1400s remain an integral part of the ceremony. These rituals honour our history and signify the assumption of each graduand's place within an institution that has done as much as any other to shape our modern world. We are Scotland's first and foremost university, the 3rd oldest in the English-speaking world and one of the 25 oldest still operating. Across 613 years, students and academics have gathered here to build and disseminate knowledge, and their ambition has proven resilient to the challenges mounted against them. The religious and political regimes that have reared and crumbled, the pandemics and wars that have beaten at the doors. Ours is not, however, a story of survival, but of leadership. St. Andrews has been at the vanguard of political, cultural, and intellectual developments since our inception, and our people have steered the hands of monarchs and parliaments since our earliest days. And we are now committed to securing the future of our institution for the next 600 years. That is the aim of the university's Making Waves campaign, launched in autumn 2024, and about which you can find out more in your copy of today's programme. The importance of our town predates the university's foundation. St. Andrews was the ecclesiastical capital of medieval Scotland. The 12th century cathedral, the remnants of which will look upon the graduation procession at the end of this ceremony, was the largest and most revered building of its time. It was a centre for pilgrimage, played home to Scotland's senior bishop, and was consecrated upon completion in the presence of Robert the Bruce in 1318. University instruction commenced at St. Andrews in May 1410, when our founder, Bishop Henry Wardlaw, invited a delegation of scholars led by Lawrence of Lindores, a philosopher of renown, to the town. And university status was formalized when Pope Benedict XIII issued papal bulls from Peniscola in August 1413, which were met by great jubilation when carried into town the following February. These papal bulls granted the university the authority to award degrees in the faculties of arts, theology, canon and civil law, and medicine. In the 2 centuries following its inception, the university boasted a critical mass of strength in the faculties of arts and divinity. However, it did not flourish in the sciences or mathematics until the second half of the 17th century, 250 years after its foundation. Even then, the science of the university was confined to mathematics and natural philosophy until the end of the 18th century. By the middle of the 16th century, the University of St. Andrews consisted of 3 collegiate societies, St. Salvator's and St. Leonard's colleges, which were dedicated to the teaching of philosophy and the arts, and St. Mary's College, which focused on theology. The professors were regents, teachers in charge of the same group of students during the 4 years of the curriculum. However, in 1579, when the university was reconstituted following the Protestant Reformation, it appointed for the first time professors who were specialists on specific subjects, including a professor of mathematics attached to St. Salvator's College. But mathematics was not especially well thought of in the university, and its professors were considered an unwanted burden. I should stress here, of course, how much times have changed since then. Mathematical teaching and research at St. Andrews evolved in 1668 with the appointment of James Gregory, a Scottish mathematician, astronomer, and inventor who was one of the 3 founders of calculus, inventor of the Gregorian telescope, and the man who discovered the principles of diffraction gratings. At the university, Gregory carried out important research in the fields of mathematics and astronomy and modernized the teaching of these subjects. He corresponded with leading natural philosophers in England and the continent and was instrumental in introducing the ideas of the scientific revolution to the community of the University of St. Andrews, though not always to immediate acceptance. While James Gregory made a major impact on the subjects being taught and researched by the university, he also left an important mark on the face of the town. In 1673, he mathematically established a meridian line, a line circling the Earth from pole to pole, along which the time is the same, passing through St. Andrews. Gregory's was the first ever non-ecclesiastical astronomical meridian line in Europe, the longest and most accurate of its kind for many years to come. Gregory conceived of his line almost 200 years before the Greenwich Meridian line was established and adopted as the world's official prime meridian. St. Andrews, and not Greenwich, is therefore the place where time began. To mark his meridian, Gregory carved it into the floor of his laboratory, now part of the King James Library. In 2014, a brass meridian line was installed in the pavement on South Street outside the library, alongside an accompanying plaque, to commemorate Gregory's achievement. In light of this piece of our history, we might ask ourselves, had Professor James Gregory not passed away only 3 years later in 1675, a month before his 37th birthday, would we be running on STAMT, St. Andrew's Mean Time, and not GMT? And what difference would this really make? Well, 12 minutes of difference, to be precise. Currently, all time in the world is calculated using a line passing through the Royal Observatory at Greenwich. Noon on this line is known as 12 o'clock GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. As St. Andrews is further west than Greenwich, the time at Gregory's meridian is 12 minutes behind GMT. So next time you are running late, you can make the excuse that you are simply operating on St. Andrew's time. While his meridian line has only been commemorated in recent years, Gregory has long occupied a significant place in the university's history as the first holder of its Regius Chair of Mathematics. A Regius Professor is literally a King's Professor and holds a chair that historically was endowed by a monarch, with James Gregory being appointed by King Charles II. Now one of the oldest and most prestigious chairs in the United Kingdom, the St. Andrews Regius Chair of Mathematics is today held by Professor Kenneth Faulkner, who was appointed by authority of a warrant signed by both Her Majesty the late Queen and the then First Minister of Scotland in 2018. So I think it is safe to say that our maths department is one of the university's crown jewels. But more seriously, the inventiveness and the openness to new ideas that cross both disciplinary and national boundaries, modelled by Gregory, continue to be fundamental values of the staff and students who, 350 years later, follow his line across South Street. Returning now to today's ceremony and the rituals which connect us to our forebears. The first of these you have already witnessed when St. Salvator's Chapel Choir initiated proceedings with a rendition of the Gaudeamus, and the university chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Donald McEwen, delivered the opening prayer. As Principal and Vice-Chancellor, it is my happy duty to welcome you all with an introduction to this ceremony, after which the presentation of degrees by the Chancellor, Dame Anne Pringle, will commence. The conferral of awards at bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level will constitute the core of this ceremony. Today, degrees are conferred both on those many students who are present and on the smaller number of those who are unable to attend and who have thus graduated in absentia. As that phrase indicates, these rituals are conducted partly in Latin, following St. Andrew's tradition. For all the graduands listed in this ceremony, present or absent, the Chancellor will call upon the deans of the respective faculties and ask them to present each graduand for their award in turn. And she will then confer the degree with Latin phrases, one of which, for example, translates as, "I raise you to the rank of Master of Arts, and to symbolize this, I place upon you this cap." To most, though, the Chancellor will simply say, "Et super te," meaning, "and upon you too." The precise moment of graduation occurs when the graduate's cap, or birrettum, which the Chancellor will be utilizing, touches the head of the graduand. This academic cap has been used in every ceremony since December 1696, when it was acquired from a St. Andrew's tailor. And it symbolizes the ascension of our graduands into graduates, and their assumption of an equal place within our alumni community. When the conferrals are complete, St. Salvator's Chapel Choir will return to deliver a musical interlude, and we are thankful both to the choir and their director, Claire Innes-Hopkins, for the felicity they bring to this occasion. We will then proceed directly to one of the highlights of these ceremonies, the presentation of honorary awards, with the conferral of an honorary doctorate upon today's guest of honor, Professor Stefan Collini. I will then deliver the graduation address to close our ceremony, a traditional message of congratulations and inspiration to our new graduates. And the ceremony will then conclude with the benediction and the graduation procession. At St. Andrews, the academics and professional staff who have supported you, our graduands, are immensely proud of your accomplishments. But this ritual does not mark the end of your association with St. Andrews. You are joining a vital community of alumni who have positively shaped the world around them for 613 years and who support one another in the present. So while you are graduating, you are not leaving our community, but taking the next step in your St. Andrews experience. And it is our sincere hope that you will continue to engage as a St. Andrean throughout your life.
Decanus Facultatis Artium.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Arts with Honours, George Stevens.
Te ad gradum magistri artium promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Charlotte Ainsworth.
Et super te.
Abigail Albrook.
Et super te.
Laura Barton.
Et super te.
Lauren Buckby.
Et super te.
Abigail Casserly.
Et super te.
Tessa Catalano.
Et super te.
Gillian Coley.
Et super te.
Annabella de Oliveira Castro.
Et super te.
Mali DeLargy.
Et super te.
Ava Gomez.
Et super te.
Freddie Greenwood.
Et super te.
Evelyn Griffiths.
Et super te.
Isabel Holloway.
Et super te.
Laura Holmes.
Et super te.
Emily Knox.
Et super te.
Eve Lennox.
Et super te.
Jagoda Ludovic.
Et super te.
Gretchen Mills.
Et super te.
Emily Owen.
Et super te.
Zoe Paddock.
Et super te.
Ailey Patterson.
Et super te.
Jessica Payne.
Et super te.
Niamh Petrie.
Et super te.
Iris Pope.
Et super te.
Erin Potts.
Et super te.
Mary Claudia Reimer.
Et super te.
Claire Rinterknecht.
Et super te.
Elizabeth Scott.
Et super te.
Zoe Small.
Et super te.
Amelia Smith.
Et super te.
Philippa Tarr.
Et super te.
Violetta Vigo.
Et super te.
Ryan Welch.
Et super te.
Eleanor White.
Et super te.
Eleanor Worms.
Et super te.
Noor Zodi.
Et super te.
Caitlin Allen.
Et super te.
Kylie Chris Connell.
Et super te.
Aurélie Coupe.
Et super te.
Bethany Dowell.
Et super te.
Emma Kunz.
Et super te.
Melissa Masterson.
Et super te.
Maximilian Noon.
Et super te.
Amber Richardson.
Et super te.
Mia Ross.
Et super te.
Caroline Scott.
Et super te.
Sarah Young.
Et super te.
Casey Cortaz.
Et super te.
Alexandra Barnard.
Et super te.
Jack Kornowski.
Et super te.
Jonah Beck.
Et super te.
Beata Burkhardt.
super te.
Isabella Checkley.
Et super te.
Vera Fortun Marco.
Et super te.
Sophia Hajin Gadi.
Et super te.
Libby Hughes.
Et super te.
Louise Mountbatten Windsor.
Et super te.
Pedro Silva.
Et super te.
Charlotte Smith.
Et super te.
Palmer Sparrow.
Et super te.
Ella Wilson.
Et super te.
Amelia Thompson.
Et super te.
Emily Boyer.
Et super te.
Riley Rabb.
Et super te.
Jacob Timney.
Et super te.
Elizabeth Adlam.
Et super te.
Veronica Dushcha Kaczmarek.
Et super te.
Georgina Parbrook.
Et super te.
Ethan Forbes.
Super te.
Kirsten Kellman.
Et super te.
Chiara Marini.
Et super te.
Lily McGaw.
Et super te.
Mia Mitchell.
Et super te.
Kelly O'Reilly.
Et super te.
Tao Yazaki.
Et super te.
Ruth Black.
Et super te.
Kirsty Graham.
Et super te.
Finlay Lister.
Et super te.
Palmer Likes.
Et super te.
Ginny Okumuro.
Et super te.
Anna Tatevoshian.
Et super te.
Ruo Tien Chang.
Et super te.
Caroline Heath.
Et super te.
Katie Ainge.
Et super te.
Poppy Burgess.
Et super te.
Jonathan Costa.
Et super te.
Devon Davila.
Et super te.
Francesca Finistrella.
Et super te.
Elena Pullins.
Et super te.
Ines Tramarin.
Et super te.
Imogen Christian.
Et super te.
Ashlyn MacDonald.
Et super te.
Anisha Minocha.
Et super te.
Jasmine Pova.
Et super te.
Eleanor Thomas.
Et super te.
Sophia Justice.
Et super te.
Madeline Ramage.
Et super te.
Florrie Sutton.
Et super te.
Jasmine Willans.
Et super te.
Nathan Barnes.
Et super te.
Delith Hughes.
Et super te.
Ali Burkholder.
Et super te.
Madeline McDermott.
Et super te.
Alice Merrin.
Et super te.
Jessica Wycherley.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Seo Chen, Michael DePro, Takaki Iwai, Nick Mitchell, Jackie Patterson.
Eos absentis magistros artium renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the postgraduate diploma Caterina Colangelo.
Te ad gradum diplomati promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Montana Ingracia Hancock.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Daniel Valeriano Benjamin Morales Miller, Rebecca Reed.
Eos absentis diplomatus renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Letters, Lauren Smith.
Te ad gradum magistri literarum promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Science, Nurul Huda.
Te ad gradum magistri scientiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Vicky Lyon.
Et super te.
Carlina McGee.
Et super te.
Ban Shubar.
Et super te.
Anna Stojkovic.
Et super te.
Pana Verish.
Et super te.
Chun Wei.
Et super te.
Brooke Weincheck.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Paul Anderson, Alishba Assad, Thomas Barber, Jonathan Edgar, Mia Franzen, Edward Hiram, Keith Kilcommons, Dominic Layton, Inara Maya de Oliveira, Rowan McCaffrey, Joseph Milburn, Jason Morgan, Reina Nisihara, Anna Padilla, Richard Robson, Srinidhi Sridharan.
Eos absentus magistros scientiae renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Fine Arts, Annie Brown.
Te ad gradum magistri artium elegentium promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Harriet French.
Et super te.
Roshni Gallagher.
Et super te.
Katerina Globerson.
Et super te.
Alison Hutchison.
Et super te.
Mia Zendejas.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for a thesis entitled Acting Like Family, Performing Kinship in the Literature of the American Civil War and Early Reconstruction. Mara Kurekian.
Te ad gradum doctoris philosophiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
For a thesis entitled Elizabethan Baroque, Word, Image and Flesh in the Elizabethan Epyllion. Nilanjana Goswami.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Bridging the Gaps, The Journey of Blank Spaces in Medieval Manuscripts from Scribe to Screen. Phoebe McIndoe.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Can Prose Be Dramatic? Practice, Performance and Virginia Woolf's Dramatic Prose. Ellie Mitchell.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Honour Hamlet.
Eam absentum doctorum philosophiae renuncio. Decanus facultatis scientiae.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Bachelor of Science with Honours, Hamish Black.
Te ad gradum baccalaureae scientiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Maya Achampong.
Et super te.
Amy Beaton.
Et super te.
Charles Beer.
Et super te.
Eve Beswick.
super te.
Lauren Blackmore.
Et super te.
Jacob Carey.
Et super te.
Christy Cargill.
Et super te.
Hoi Chong.
Et super te.
Jordanis Christo Orlidis.
Et super te.
Aladi Cowan.
Et super te.
Simone de Leon.
Et super te.
Angelica de Souza.
Et super te.
Agambir Daliwal.
Et super te.
Shiman Dropulich.
Et super te.
Ilana Goldman.
Et super te.
Aldo Gubser.
Et super te.
Salvas Haji Filippo.
Et super te.
Jack Hamilton.
Et super te.
Millie Harris.
Et super te.
Luke Laredo.
Et super te.
Corey Lister.
Et super te.
Dylan Main.
Et super te.
Charlotte McCarthy.
Et super te.
Rebecca McEnroy.
Et super te.
Anushka Moore.
Et super te.
Stanley Mottram.
Et super te.
Declan Mustu.
Et super te.
Elena Moyo Debon Rostro.
Et super te.
Daniel Poynton.
Et super te.
Caitlin Riddex.
Et super te.
Gilib Sinu Gubka.
Et super te.
Madhav Singh.
Et super te.
Sophia Stonebridge.
Et super te.
Kirsty Taylor.
Et super te.
Caden Urquhart.
Et super te.
Aaron Viviani.
Et super te.
Toby Waite.
Et super te.
Oliver Ward.
Et super te.
Elise Pigelet.
Et super te.
Yi Chin Zo.
Et super te.
Tomas Alves de Almeida.
Et super te.
Elva Ikeas.
Et super te.
Archibald Galbraith.
Et super te.
Angel Lathoya Bia.
Et super te.
Blaine Price.
Et super te.
Amy Richards.
Et super te.
Patrick Ridge.
Et super te.
Isaac Smith.
Et super te.
Agastya Vishwanath.
Et super te.
Avi Falk.
Et super te.
Ebony Harkin.
Et super te.
Sir Yuan Chun.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Sop Guest, Kaylin Sharpless, Armorg Simhadri, Isabel Stanley, Eve Yoon, Kathy Jung.
Ers absentus baccalaureus scientiae renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master in Mathematics with honours, Liliana Burton.
Te ad gradum magistri in mathematicae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Sean Alley.
Et super te.
Colin Bonner.
Et super te.
Thomas Brandy.
Et super te.
Donald Campbell.
Et super te.
Naharika Chivan.
Et super te.
Malcolm Clark.
Et super te.
Alexander Cork.
Et super te.
Eric Damashauskas.
Et super te.
Evan Dennis.
Et super te.
Tom Dunlop.
Et super te.
Robert Fisk.
Et super te.
Eve Kenneser.
Et super te.
Ross Kerr.
Et super te.
Muriel Kamatova.
Et super te.
Murray Kiernan.
Et super te.
Tom Kirk.
Et super te.
Max Curiel.
Et super te.
Jakub Lewandowski.
Et super te.
Yu Lee.
Et super te.
Owen Lintott.
Et super te.
Fraser Meldrum.
Et super te.
Kaylin Pereira.
Et super te.
Michelangelos Petrakis Rios.
Et super te.
Jessica Tabiner.
Et super te.
Cecily Taylor.
Et super te.
Campbell Truman.
Et super te.
Theo Tyson.
Et super te.
Karis Williams.
Et super te.
Harry Willis.
Et super te.
Levin Bally.
Et super te.
Shen Xiang Huang.
Et super te.
Jack Nichols.
Et super te.
Noah Pugh.
Et super te.
Nathaniel Strout.
Et super te.
Toshan Tan.
Et super te.
Jessica Casey.
Et super te.
Jarvis Jameson.
Et super te.
Andrew Ormrod.
Et super te.
Victor Tritsiakov.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Gonzalo Dimash Cordeira.
Eam absentum magistrum in mathematicae renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master in Physics with honours, Peter Cudmore.
Te ad gradum magistri in philosophiae naturali promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Ewan Day.
Et super te.
Robert Fort.
Et super te.
Harry Jones.
Et super te.
Jingyao Liu.
Et super te.
Donald Perry.
Et super te.
Noah Cooley.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Macklin Intrican.
Eum absentum magistrum in philosophiae naturali renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Science, Joseph Ward.
Te ad gradum magistri scientiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for a thesis entitled Abstract Ping Pong Systems in Subgroups of Thompson's Groups, Bromlin Cameron.
Te ad gradum doctoris philosophiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
For a thesis entitled Goodness of Fit Tests for Spatial Capture-Recapture, Yin-Ru Chu.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Automata Theoretic Methods for Computation in Semigroups, Reinus Tsiepons.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Well Quasi-Order and Atomicity for Combinatorial Structures, Victoria Ironmonger.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Statistical Methods for Camera Trap Surveys of Snow Leopard Populations, Arbanand Reddy Cody.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Generation of Wreath Products and Their Generalization, Jiaping Lu.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Spatial Capture-Recapture for Wildlife Search Encounter Data, Savannah Rogers.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Exponential Mixing and Almost Sure Limit Theorems in Dynamical Systems, Boy Yuan Zhao.
Et super te. Decanus facultatis sacrosanctae theologiae.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Theology with Honours, Vic Chua.
Te ad gradum magistri sacrosanctae theologiae promoveo, cuius rei in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Charlie Diggs.
Et super te.
Ariel Freelander.
Et super te.
Isaac Halpern.
Et super te.
Archie Moore.
Et super te.
Hannah Owens.
Et super te.
Alexander Prokopis.
Et super te.
Parker Rhodes.
Et super te.
Matilda Singer.
Et super te.
Caleb Tanner.
Et super te.
Cecilia Wishart.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the postgraduate diploma in absentia on Gillian Richmond.
Eam absentum diplomatum renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Master of Letters, Lucy Bunce.
Te ad gradum magistri literarum promoveo, cuius re in symbolum super te hoc biretu impono.
Bruce Campbell.
Et super te.
Martin Hannon.
Et super te.
William Holliday.
Et super te.
Elizabeth McCabe.
Et super te.
Jennifer Pagan.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree posthumously on Matthew Wren.
Eam postmortem magistrum literarum renuncio.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Master of Studies in absentia on Thomas Casemore.
Eam absentum magistrum studiorum renuncio.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree of Master of Philosophy in absentia on Webster Siami Kameme.
Eam absentum magistrum philosophiae renuncio.
Chancellor, I have the honour to present for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for a thesis entitled We Have Not Arrived, the Meaning of Divine and Human Rest in the Works of Augustine, Aquinas, Calvin and Barth. Cody Brown.
Te ad gradum doctoris philosophiae promoveo, cuius re in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
For a thesis entitled Jesus with His Disciples, the evocation of O.G. Isaiah in Matthew's presence theme. Joel Butcher.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Christology in Coptic and Byzantine Liturgical Texts, Father Morkos Hosni Fakhri Gamil.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled In the Law's Shadow She Speaks, an intertextual narrative analysis of casuistic laws and the women in Genesis. Ryan Halston.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Analogy Without Remainder, Resisting Univocity in British Theology, Jarek Jankowski.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled God's communicative relationality in the theology of Petrus van Maastricht, Christian Kalmbach.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Relational Consistency and the Regulation of Atonement, a Theological Proposal, Benjamin Keogh.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Flood and Fountain, Water, Sovereignty and the Shape of the Book of Psalms, Clayton Mills.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled Ignorance Before God, a Kierkegaardian account of innocence and the guilt of hereditary sin in dialogue with the cognitive sciences, Orrin Page.
Et super te.
For a thesis entitled God and the Church of God, the dogmatic ecclesiology of Colin E. Gunton and John B. Webster through the lens of church conflict, Noki Ewan.
Et super te.
Chancellor, I ask you to confer the degree in absentia on Keith Wiedesheim.
Eum absentum doctorum philosophiae renuncio. I call upon Bishop Wardlaw, Professor Richard Watmore of the School of History.
Chancellor, it's my privilege to present for the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa, Professor Stefan Collini. As you graduate from our glorious institution, the question is worth asking: how do universities maintain themselves? Why do these remarkable walls stand? One answer is resources. Institutions of higher education always need funding. Leadership matters too, as any organization can be broken at speed. Further, there is history. If a reputation for excellence is long-standing, naturally, St Andrews is fortunate in these regards. But the greatest of ingredients is scholarship. Without the learning of your tutors, where would you be? And we all need to be taught, ideally, to learn from the best and the brightest. Stephen Collini, Professor Emeritus of Intellectual History and English Literature at the University of Cambridge, is one of the great arts and humanities scholars of our time. His research is impeccable and imaginative. He is a prose master. His judgment is ever acute, often surprising, and his writing is laced with humor. Above all, he undertakes the labor undergirding true research. Professor Collini was educated at Cambridge and at Yale, teaching at the University of Sussex, before moving to a post in the Cambridge Faculty of English in 1986, retiring as professor in 2014. He's Fellow of the British Academy, gave the Ford Lectures at Oxford in 2017, and the inaugural Winch Lectures at St Andrews in 2022. He is a regular contributor to the London Review of Books, the Times Literary Supplement, The Guardian, The Nation, The New Statesman. Let us just say he publishes a lot, and esteemed publications ask him to write for them. He has been a prominent teacher throughout his career, the best of colleagues, someone who forever helped younger scholars and never shirked the time-consuming, unpopular administrative or leadership roles that faculty periodically undertake. And I know from personal experience that he is the most generous of collaborators. We edited 2 books together long ago in the late 1990s, and it's no exaggeration to say he did just about all of the work. Professor Collini's research is interdisciplinary. Often when you use that term, no one really knows what it means. In Professor Collini's case, he's made significant contributions in 5 research fields. Firstly, the history of political thought, explaining the transition from laissez-faire liberalism to the sociologically obsessed neoliberalism between the 19th and 20th centuries. Secondly, literary history broadly conceived, including as a discipline and the overlap with criticism. His latest book of 2025 is entitled Literature and Learning, A History of English Studies in Britain. Thirdly, of intellectuals, including path-breaking work on T.S. Eliot, F.R. Leavis, George Orwell, William Empson, and Raymond Williams. His book, Absent Minds, Intellectuals in Britain, of 2006, has become a classic, exploding the mythical Anglo-French comparison that Britain, unlike France, is a land without intellectuals. Fourthly, Britishness and national identity, including engagement with Scottish, Irish, Welsh, French, and English identities. Finally, the role of universities, including critical evaluations of higher education policy under several governments. His books, What Are Universities For? And Speaking of Universities, need to be read by everyone. Professor Collini, in one of his early works, used the term public moralists to describe prominent figures in Victorian and Edwardian intellectual life. A public moralist was someone who wrote for the broadest educated audiences, seeking to shape national culture, regularly questioning contemporary politics and policy. The foundational belief was that it is vital to have a healthy public culture. And such a culture relies upon universities, those who work in them, those who graduate from them, all of you. Professor Collini is now the very model of a public moralist, and there is no one who inspires greater confidence in the role. Chancellor, in recognition of his singular contribution to the study of literature, political thought and intellectual history, I invite you to confer the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa on Professor Stefan Collini.
Te ad gradum doctoris literarum honoris causa promoveo, cuius re in symbolum super te hoc biretum impono.
Chancellor, Principal, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and above all, fellow graduands, I don't need to say how genuinely honoured I feel to be awarded this degree by such an outstanding and ancient university as St Andrews, and I'm very grateful to the Principal and all colleagues who were involved in this, to me, unexpected but delightful decision. I'm also grateful to Professor Watmore for, on this occasion at least, setting aside his normally high standards of literary restraint and avoidance of exaggeration. Coming to St Andrews, I'm very conscious that I'm not a golfer, alas, but I am a runner. And so tomorrow, down on West Sands, I hoped to reenact some part of that memorable final scene from the film Chariots of Fire, which, as most of you know, was filmed there. I hope I may see some of you running there as well, hangovers permitting. Now, it may be surprising, but I was young once, and when I was young, I did think that on public occasions my seniors could occasionally have a tendency to be, how shall I put it, a little pompous and self-important. And in advance of today's ceremony, I assumed that I would continue that tradition. Actually, I've decided to avoid the risks altogether by simply relying upon two very short quotations from much greater authorities than I could ever be. The first is from the great novelist Henry James, who wrote, "Live all you can. It's a mistake not to." And the second, which echoes a medieval injunction, but was given its modern form by Mahatma Gandhi, says, "Study as though you might live forever. Live as though you might die tomorrow." You don't need me to interpret those sentiments for you. The future belongs to you. Go and live it. Thank you.
I call upon the principal of the university.
First of all, let me offer my warmest congratulations to all our graduates. Today marks the culmination of years of study, effort, persistence, and growth. Every person graduating has reached the point by a different route. Some of your journeys have unfolded largely according to carefully laid plans and a clear sense of direction. Others have been more circuitous, entailing unexpected detours, difficult choices, and fresh beginnings. Whatever course and character your time in St Andrews has taken, it has brought you to this moment. While the achievement is, of course, emphatically and splendidly yours, this is also a day that belongs as much to those who have supported you as it does to you yourselves. Families, friends, lecturers and tutors and professional services colleagues have all contributed to the story that we celebrate today. And it is entirely right that we acknowledge them alongside your own achievements. So let's do so now with a really big round of applause. Right, I do have a couple of other things to say. Graduation ceremonies possess a distinctive quality because they compel us to look in two directions at once. They invite reflection upon what has been accomplished, but they also place you, our graduates, at the threshold of what is yet to come. It is a defining moment in your life when that possibility feels both expansive and exacting, when the future seems to offer not a single road forward, but a branching of paths. That image of life as a series of liminal choices is an ancient motif. One of its most enduring expressions comes from classical antiquity in the story of Hercules at the crossroads. Long before Hercules became the hero of legend, before the 12 labors, the Nemean lion skin, the descent into the underworld, before the feats of prodigious strength that would make him one of the most recognizable figures in classical mythology, he appears in a rather different guise. In this story, Hercules is a young man. He has reached the point at which he must begin to take charge of his own life and through his actions show himself and the world what kind of person he wishes to become. The story, first told by the sophist Prodicus and preserved by Xenophon, depicts Hercules seated at a crossroads contemplating his future. As he sits there, two women approach him. The first offers him the allure of vice, the husks of pleasure unearned, a life untroubled by exertion and carried forward by the labors of others. The second woman makes a very different appeal. The path she presents, virtue, is arduous. It will expose Hercules to intense hardship and suffering and will test his gristle and grip. The second woman does not conceal those demands, but reasons that they are inseparable from a life of genuine worth. Nothing truly admirable, she insists, is bestowed without effort and application. In following this path, Hercules will become equal to the demands placed upon him. And it is this path, of course, that Hercules ultimately chooses. A moral and momentous story, Hercules at the Crossroads has survived for more than 2 millennia, traveling through antiquity, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and into our own time. It has echoed through philosophy, literature, painting, and religious writing alike. And part of that longevity, I think, comes from the fact that the story confronts one of the most abiding questions we can ask of ourselves. What kind of life is worth pursuing? Again and again, generations have found in the young Hercules a reflection of themselves. We all arrive, sooner or later, at a succession of figurative crossroads over the course of our lives, and who we become will depend upon which directions we choose to take. The great 20th century American poet Robert Frost captures precisely this idea when, in The Road Not Taken, he writes that, confronted on horseback with a choice of two roads, I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. For the earliest Stoic saints and ascetics, the moral binaries between virtue and vice, discipline and indulgence, so evident in Hercules' story, left little room for doubt. But a modern inflection that speaks more readily to the clamour of the age and the cross-currents of our many callings makes the choice and the question of how free we are to choose less straightforward. We now live with a much more nuanced understanding of well-being, and rightly so. We appreciate the importance of joy, friendship, rest, and delight rather better than some of those older moralists. Indeed, a flourishing life requires all those things. At the same time, we can still look to the value of Hercules' own choice. Taking the line of least resistance is not always the way to make progress in life, and it also does not ask very much from the world in return. It is hard work that will enlarge your capacities and deepen your character. It is also what allows your gifts to take fuller effect in the lives of others. Of course, many of the decisions you make with the passage of time will not place you at such grand moral crossroads, and you will have to be bold and careful about what guides your judgment. In that regard, I think it is useful to turn to one of the university's own former students who was preoccupied with this very question. The 16th century Scottish poet and courtier, John Stuart of Baldinnis, and his allegorical poem, In Searching Out of True Felicity, a searching out of true felicity. Drawing on the Christian tradition of pilgrimage and the wider crossroads topos associated with Hercules, the poem depicts the travails of a young, weary poet pilgrim who, on his journey towards felicity, towards true fulfillment, meets a literal parting of ways, one broad, well-trodden road of voluptuousness, and the other a narrower, winding path of humility. Along the way, the pilgrim encounters more than the simple dichotomy imposed on Hercules. Instead, he also seeks counsel among a company of different guides and competing authorities, in the personifications of charity, felicity, Urania, and most intriguingly, the secular figure of experience. What Stuart captures in a way that feels surprisingly modern is that in choosing our paths, in moving forward in our own lives, we listen both to the claims of memory and the summons of possibility, to the repertoire of voices and influences that accompany us through life, and in doing so, we become gradually our own guides. You are graduating into a world that offers no shortage of choices. Some will concern professional ambitions and achievements. Others will determine where you put down roots, whom you love, how you choose to spend your time and talents, and the values by which you choose to live. There will be crossroads that you can see coming and others that reveal themselves to you only as you reach them. There will be paths you forge for yourself and encourage others to take too. So today, as you leave St. Andrews and begin the next stage of your lives, you do so at your own crossroads. And I hope you will come to see in that the enduring gift of choice itself. Congratulations, everybody, once again.
If you're able, please stand for the benediction.
Oremus. Gratia Domini nostri Iesu Christi, et caritas Dei, et communicatio Spiritus Sancti, sit cum omnibus nobis, in saecula saeculorum. Amen.